So as we take a look at archiving, there's several reasons for archiving. I think that as users or techs look at archiving, they may come to it from either a compliance reason, making sure that they're compliant with things like FINRA, FERPA, and the SEC, or they may have a legal reason to do it as well. So maybe they've been called on the carpet and said, hey, you need to reproduce these emails. You need an easier way to do that versus looking at tape backups. And then the third reason would be just simple access to old email. Instead of having email live on your servers for 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, and having to maintain those PST files, you could set a program to get rid of PSTs that are maybe older than, or emails that are older than a few years, and then trust the archive will have the older emails. So if anyone needs to call on those emails, they'll have access to it at a user level and then also as an admin. And we'll touch on each of those levels of access as well. When you're looking at the archive, it comes with certain key features. It is really robust from an e-discovery perspective. So again, if you're using this versus a PST search, you don't have to search through tape files or backups of emails to try to figure out where the email lives and then go through the really difficult process of finding or tracking down that email. You've got a simple interface either on the console side or even as a user to discover that email. And then you've got the total protection. So the emails, as they're stored, they're all tamper-proof. They're all fully redundant within our architecture so that when you need an email, you can kind of rest assured that it's there. There isn't any upfront capital outlay at all. There's really no setup or upgrade fees to get it set up with archiving, and it is 24/7 support on the network side. So if you have a network issue with it, you certainly can track back and get support on it. From a data center perspective, the data centers are ISO 27001 certified. What that means is that if you're compliance driven for archiving, and someone says, well, what is your structure? You're able to really quickly go over the architecture with the customer and say, and calm them down or comfort them that they've got a solution that has the redundancies in place, and again, it's tamper-proof. So once an email is archived, it can't be adjusted or messed with in any way. And then there's certain IT benefits, obviously, the consolidation of PSTs and not having to worry about the storage, the ongoing storage of the messages. So let's take a look at the archive itself. There's some legal value to having the archive in place from an e-discovery and a preservation standpoint. Again, you've got the ability to reproduce an email in its original format very quickly. So if you're called on the carpet and you have to produce an email, you can just go into the system, you can pull the email up, and once you've got the email up, if you need to forward that on to your legal team, you can, and they will have not only the message as it was originally sent, but also the associated header. So if they need to be able to document who the message was from or any associated timestamps, you're going to have that message intact. And then from a government perspective, there are certain reasons why you'd need to archive. The federal rules of civil procedure say that you have to have the archive available. You have to have these messages available, and we're certainly meeting those compliance standards. And just a quick look at the overall compliance value. Again, tamper-proof, dual data center in the U.S. You also have access to global data centers as well. So if you have a customer in the UK or in Tokyo or Hong Kong or Australia, and they need to archive on their side, you certainly can point them to the appropriate data center so that the archive is local for them. And then all routing can also be controlled regionally for email filtering. So if you need to route email to a closer data center for your UK or EMEA customers, you can do that as well. All right, so this kind of gives us a quick overview of where archiving lives. If we're looking at the screen, as the sender, the normal flow is just to send an email. When you engage archiving, the only thing that you would have to do on your side is A, have an Exchange server, and B, set up journaling for that. What happens when you archive is the mail is sent, and when the mail is sent, it will normally go on to the recipient, but it will also go into a journal store. That's the mailbox here. Our system will pick it up from the journal store. It will create a replicated copy of that message. We'll index it, we'll serialize and audit it on our end, and then give the call to purge the journaling folder. This happens several times per hour. And when this happens, you can kind of then at that point know that the messages are stored in the archive, and then if your procedure is to keep it locally for a couple of years and then purge off, the messages will still be available to you. So taking a look at an admin view of the console. Really simple navigation. For all customers that are using the existing email platform, it lives within the same platform. So when you log in today, you may just see account management, you may see email production, and when you engage archiving, you'll just have a new tab that shows up at the top of the screen. Really simple navigation. As an admin, you would just select the archiving tab, and once you go into that tab, you'd be able to pull the archive. Pulling the archive is in the form of a message search. That could be a simple search, that's kind of to, from, and the date range, or if you need to do a deeper dive into an archive, you have an advanced search as well. That advanced search is going to give you access to the header, the subject, the body, and then any attachment content, and the ability to search for keyword or key phrase and match those terms as well. You can even do a deep dive into attachment types. So on the bottom of the screen it says attachment name. If you're looking for a particular type of file like a TXT or a docx file, you could do that type of a search as well and align that to any particular sender or recipient. So I could get all of the documents that were sent from a particular person and then drill down just on that attachment type if I needed to. As a user, I'm not left out. As a user, I certainly can get into the console as well. Certain reasons why a user would want the console would be the ability to see everything in a very simple view. This would be more of your advanced users, the ones that need to be able to pull a lot of messages in a single view and then export them. And we make that really easy. Whether you're an admin or a user, you're able to get in and you'll enter your search terms. The messages would appear on the right side of the screen, and then you can click Export Selected or Export All to pull the messages off. Once you're pulling the messages off, they're then stored locally. They could be opened up by any email client. They could be forwarded on, zipped and forwarded on to your legal team or anyone else that would need it. You also have the ability to save any searches that you do. So if you have a reason to pull a search and then have that search pullable later, you certainly can just save it, and then you don't have to recreate your search terms the next time. So it really makes it easy as an admin to, again, get into the system, discover what you need to discover, and then ultimately save it so that you can search it out later. You also have the additional ability to do a legal hold, and the reason to do a legal hold is to access an email even beyond the retention period. So let's say, for example, you have a lawsuit that takes place in 8 years. 8 years from now, you're called to reproduce emails, and those emails may go back, up to 10 years. At that point, you can reproduce the emails. If you create a legal hold, those emails will stay on the system and be held or locked on the system, even if they would normally expire off. So if you've got a 5-year or a 10-year retention period, even if as a period expires, those messages would still be available to you. So we offer full Outlook integration at the user level. As a user, I can certainly get into the system, and I'd be able to just really simply pull my messages. From a user perspective, while the console is great and it's got some deep dive searches that are capable, it's nice to know as a user that I can get into a system and see everything natively. So once you load an archiving plugin from Virtual Administrator and Spam Soap, the user would be able to simply get into the system, identify the search term, whether that's a keyword or a key phrase, and then they're able to actually see the messages populate. On the screen, you'll have a search box that says Archive Search Results. That Archive Search Results is where those messages would live. It appears to be natively living within Outlook for that user, but the messages are actually just stubs, so you're not pulling in all of that data until you actually decide which message you want to see. And at that point, you've clicked the message, you're able to then see the message, and once you're seeing the message, you can do what you want with it. If you need to throw it into a different folder, you certainly have the ability to do that. Or if you want to forward it on to someone else, you can do that as well. Any action that you take does not mess with the actual archive store. Like I said earlier, it's all tamper-proof. So even if a user were to pull a message from the system, that message is just pulled down. Once it's pulled down, they can forward it, they can reply, they can do whatever they want with the message, but the original store is intact. So if you're called on the carpet later to reproduce the message, their interaction via the plugin has not messed with the archive store in any way. So why choose this archiving solution? I think it's pretty simple. It's not living on your system, so you're not having to maintain that server or that architecture on your side. It's really simple to get set up. There are zero real barriers to it, and there's unlimited storage. So once you're up and running with it, these messages will live for up to 10 years without you having to really interact with it in any way. And what are the requirements? You have to have Exchange. That is a core requirement, and that Exchange has to be able to journal. This is envelope journaling. Once you've satisfied that requirement, everything else is pretty straightforward. You're going to need to set up the email filtering. So that's our spam and virus protection, and it comes naturally or natively with the archiving solution. So once you've got archiving, you'll automatically have those features available to you as well. And then you can access it using all of the normal browsers. It says IE6 and Firefox, but you can get into the archive using other browsers as well. I've used Safari, I've used Chrome, and not had any issues. Pretty much it's the same type of access that you would have for all other functions within our console. So as long as you can log into the console browsers, you can also get to your archive. And again, because it's integrating with Outlook, the user is going to be able to see all of their messages or pull their messages from the archive store without needing access into any other technology. Guys, that really covers the Spam Soap archiving solution. I'll open it up to questions and to VA as well.